In August of 2009, the Wired Italy magazine published a lengthy article on the Paul is dead hoax. According to the article, forensic pathologist Gabriella Calzi and computer analyst Francesco Gavanzi set out to dispel the rumors of Paul McCartney's death. According to popular lore, they ended up proving Paul's replacement. But did they really do that? Is everything they stated in the article true, and do we need to accept that Paul McCartney wasn't seen again after 1966? At first glance, the article looks quite impressive. The sheer number of pages it covers is staggering, as are the claims that are made. And this is where we run into the first problem. According to the article, the researchers started out by obtaining high-quality photos of Paul before and after 1966. They ended with 4, 2 were taken prior to 1966, and 2 were taken after. Now, this is my first objection to the validity of the article. There are literally thousands of photos of Paul McCartney. How is it possible they only found 4 that were, according to them, of sufficient comparison quality? And are those photos indeed suitable? Sadly, they are not. I have found problems with each of the comparisons, and I will address them as we progress. Let's look at the first photo comparison in the article. The researchers started out with a photo which originally featured all Beatles, and they zoomed in on Paul's face. They compared it to a cropped photo from Sgt. Pepper's, and they also obtained a photo from the gala premiere of Love. The investigators noted that neither of the later faces matched the one from 1963. I immediately noticed something odd about the compilations and recreated them. To my surprise, I experienced no problems whatsoever. The faces matched perfectly. When I looked closer at the article, I noticed the 1967 photo was pinched to make Paul's face narrower, whereas the photo from 2006 was widened, which also explains why they couldn't create a match. Please take a close look at these comparisons, which use the original, undoctored photos. The middle photo is a 50-50 overlay in which both photos are very clearly discernible. If there had been any discrepancies, they should stand out quite clearly. As you can see, the features line up perfectly when the original photos are used. As a quick aside, can we just take a moment to appreciate Paul's Beatle cuteness in this other picture I found from the Love premiere? There was another comparison on this page of the article, an ear comparison. Now, keep in mind that biometrics of the ear is widely considered pseudoscience. It is not accepted as evidence in most courts, but some nations do value it equally to fingerprints. At first glance, the ear comparison looks fair. Though the photos are cropped too far to even see a face, most fans will recognize the ears as Paul's. It seems like the Italian investigators found something significant when they noticed that certain parts of the ear don't align. Could it be they have found a smoking gun? When we take a look at the original photos, however, it soon becomes clear why the ears don't match. The angles are wrong. Similar, yes, but different enough to ensure the ears will not line up when overlaid. In the early Beatles photo, we're looking up into Paul's face from quite a low angle, quite far forward into his line of sight. The other one is taken from a much higher angle in his outermost periphery, giving us a nearly straight-on view of the ear. Apart from the fact that our ears change as we age and the images show a 40-year age difference, the angles from which they were taken make sure those photos will never align. We can, however, easily see these photos show the same man. To show that his ear did, in fact, not change at all, I created a new comparison, using 2 different photos than the ones used in the article. One was taken in 1964. Whereas the other dates back to 1984. Even though there's a difference of 20 years, all facial features align perfectly, and it's clear to see the ears are identical. Between the before and after photo, I have added a 25%, 50%, and 75% overlay to show the features match. It was extremely difficult to find a Beatles photo which showed most of Paul's ear, whilst still being clear and detailed enough to serve as a comparison. Therefore, These two photos show a few minor differences. These are easily explained by the fact that Paul is sitting down in one and standing up in the other. What does count is that his features are an exact match, even with a 20-year age difference and a drastically different hairstyle. The next comparison they made was very disappointing to me. How can any self-respecting forensic analyst call that a fair comparison? The angles and facial expressions are completely different. What's more, these are very bad quality photos. The one from the Wings era is only 206 by 244 pixels. I have scoured the internet for a larger version, but I could not find one. The one they compared it to dates back to 1965. It is very grainy, suggesting it might be a scan from a newspaper or magazine article. My best guess, however, would be that this is a screenshot from the I Feel Fine promotional video. The poor quality aside, though, anyone can see these photos cannot be compared. How can these analysts say the palette is different when no palette is visible in the Wings photo? Again, I had no choice but to create a proper compilation, and after some scouring, I found two photos that had nearly identical angles and facial expressions. They're taken some 40 years apart, yet they line up perfectly. This comparison also dispels the claim the Italian researchers made in this article that Paul may have undergone plastic surgery. If he had, we would be able to see changes in the curves and proportions of his face. However, apart from the normal aging signs, everything is still the same as it always was. Of course, such a comparison can no longer be made today, since Paul has recently gotten either veneers or even dentures, which has drastically altered the appearance of his teeth. Though the article is very long and wordy, these are all the photo comparisons they included, and I must say they were poorly executed. I do not believe for one moment these people were unable to find higher resolution photos. They're out there for anyone to find. Even 7 years ago, Google would have provided a plethora of images to choose from with just one simple search. But, and this is important, these aren't just any old photo compilations they used. These exact same compilations can be found on a website titled The King is Naked, which was created by one of the most vocal proponents of the Paul is dead myth, Sun King. Sun King also happens to be Italian, and I have even seen the suggestion that Mr. Gavanzi might, in fact, be Sun King himself or closely associated with him. This, of course, is a rumor for which I have no evidence. Therefore, I will not enforce it as anything more than a possibility. It would, of course, explain why these photos were favored over better ones. Now, as for the final conclusion, many PID believer uses this article to claim it proved Paul was replaced. But, is that true? No, it is not. Whilst the analysts had their doubts and said this case should be investigated further to reach a conclusion, they also stated they could not prove Paul was a different man after 1966. They complained that not having Paul there to conduct physical measurements made their conclusion less certain than it could have been. They said that without a skull or a means to see beneath the skin and muscles, their findings were not accurate and therefore not finite. This was confirmed by an American forensic investigator, who has explained why the investigation wasn't done according to scientific standards and therefore not valid. I will post a link to his argument in the description. So, despite what many vocal PID supporters say, the article does not prove Paul is dead or replaced. It only shows that poor research and altered photos can make someone look different and cause confusion. In this video, I have quite clearly shown that when the comparison is done properly with untampered photos, the face always matches 100%. I don't want to come out and say the Italian analysts lied, but they were certainly less than truthful, and it's a disgrace that this not only made it to print but has become one of the favorite go-to arguments of those who believe Paul is dead. I realize most of them will not accept my findings, but perhaps somebody will acknowledge that the article can't be taken seriously.